Negotiation goes back to what you just asked, selling the idea. You need to kind of develop a plan. Our book, and for those of you who came in a little bit late, this is all an overview of this book called Finding and Keeping, or Getting and Keeping Flying Sites. This is what we're doing here. And all this information goes into more depth in the book, so we're going to giving you a quick overview of that. But selling the idea is a plan that you can put together that shows them how it's good for them and how it's good for you, and what modeling does. Some of the people that are speakers here, started flying models when they were just little, and they've developed, their careers out of it. We've got all kinds of folks in this organization that are flyers, from Juan Pablo Montoya, a NASCAR racer, to anybody else. So all those things can be used to leverage that. Yes, sir.
I have one thing here that really worked for us, and that is that you need to get first council people or board members, because they're the ones that are answering to the public, and then preferably somebody who knows them. And you go to the person who knows them first, and then with the person to the board members. And we just acquired a field, and we had a county director of properties that wasn't interested in being hassled with another field. And one time he finally told me, he says, you really made a good relationship with all the board members. And I thought that was the best compliment he paid me.
Right.
Because he knew he was going to have to come up with a solution for us.
That's right. And that's part of what we're going to go into the proactive side about how you keep that site, is creating those relationships and cultivating them so they're there for a long time, because that ensures you're going to be there for a long time. Salesmanship, just doing a good job of selling this idea to the site owner. Thinking about having a plan. Don't just walk up there and shoot from the hip. Kind of have a plan and decide what you want to do. You may have somebody in the club that's really good at that. Maybe you have a used car salesman in the club. You want to kind of get him to do it because that's what he does for a living. So, you kind of put that spin on it. You use the assets that you have as a club. And then sell the sport, just like I said earlier. How much fun it is. Whether your grandkids are involved or your grandfather is involved or whatever, all the things that you're doing with it, why it's so much fun, why is it a good thing to do? It's a clean hobby. We have virtually no problems. The people that fly are all voters. That usually is a big click. Oh, they're all voters. I might want to do what they need done because they're going to vote me out of office if they don't like me. So all those things are positives for you. So work on selling the sport to them as well. Show that your group is responsible. That's a kind of a key point. If you've got a group with our safety record and our history, that's a really good thing to pass along to them, that you're not just there to tear up the site. You want to take care of it. You're going to pick up the trash. You're going to do all the things that you need to do in order to protect that site. And modelers are known for that. That's one of our strong points. We appreciate the use of that facility, so we take care of it. If you've rented apartments or whatever, then you might have had kind of a negative opinion of renters in the past. So we can show that we're not that typical type. Community projects that the club's involved in and what's planned for the future. Community projects really do make a really big difference, Many clubs are involved in Toys for Tots programs, a lot of events for returning soldiers and their families. Those kind of things that you're involved with have a big impact on how the community sees the club and sees the activity as a whole. And not just the community, but the movers and shakers in that community. If you're dealing with a county or a city, or you're thinking about doing something with them, and they're aware of what you've done in the past, maybe you've done a Toys for Tots and you got on the local TV show for 5 minutes, and you have something about that, about you raised $12,000 this year for Toys for Tots and you did this, that, and the other. They remember that. And then the fact that you might have a model event or 2 model events a year that brings 35 or 40 guys into your area to attend this event, and they're staying at a hotel and they're buying food at the restaurants and all that sort of stuff. Well, you have an economic impact that you're providing for the city and the county. And those are good things that you need to say, we're doing something for the county. We're not taking, we're helping to bring in money. We're helping to do things that are positive for the community. And if you do those things, then they remember that. And down the road, that'll pay dividends that you can't really appreciate until you actually are in that position. And they go, oh yeah, I remember those guys. I remember them coming out and being involved in our fair or our air show or whatever it might be. Financing, that can always be a tricky subject to talk about. In many of the cases that we're dealing with today, when we're dealing with public lands, there's not much financing that's really involved. Most of the time, the facilities are available to you for little or nothing, and it's a matter of site improvements. So clubs work together on that. We do have some very good ideas that are in this book on how clubs have financed loans and how they've done things within the club to help improve sites. There are some programs that AMA is involved in, but you can look at sponsors outside that organization. A lot of times local hobby shops are involved in that a little bit. They want to put some signage out to advertise their store. I've seen that happen to several clubs. I've seen a couple of clubs that are involved with larger corporations. They might fly on a GE property or something like that, or a waste management property, and they do some advertising and they actually provide some funding. So there are things that are available. Lots of times you just have to look around and ask, and you might be surprised what actually is available, because they have a budget for advertising and they see you as a positive in the community and they're willing to spend a few dollars on you. You just have to look around. Loans, that's a little difficult, but there are ways to do that. We've got some plans here and some things that have been done by clubs that works pretty well. Clubs have done internal loans that's worked out well. The Academy of Model Aeronautics also has a flying site improvement grant, which has been around for years and years. And last year, the Academy gave away about $40,000 in grants. We had 24 clubs that applied for the money. And of that, 4 of those clubs had received grants in the previous years. And so they're automatically kind of put at the bottom of the list. But of the remaining 20 clubs, we started with about $40,000 and just started passing out the money, and we just give the money out till it's gone. And all 20 of those clubs that applied got money this year, and that's money they don't have to repay. And there's a flying site improvement grant form on the website, and so you can download that. And if your club has a project, I mean, you really do want to look into that. Your district VPs are always trying to push that, so we have more and more applicants, because we should take advantage of that money. And then if you sign a contract, you need to think about some things. Who's going to be responsible? Is the club incorporated? Somebody's got to put their name on the dotted line, so you got to think about how you're going to do that. We happen to have probably the best attorney in the country here for AMA is Felix Gore, sitting back there. He's our AMA attorney, and he's got some great ideas. He's been doing this for a little while, and he kind of knows the ins and outs of what we do. And so we've got a resource that, if you run into a hitch with that, usually we can talk about some things and come up with some ideas, and usually resolve these problems in case you run into something like that, and determine what is maybe the best way for the club to sign a contract and keep their nose clean and out of future problems. How many years you're going to have the contract? Something you need to report back to the club. Is 2 years, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year? It's important to determine that ahead of time. Making the idea work. Once you actually get a site, how are you going to do it? You got to come up with a site layout. We have some drawings in the book and online that give you a basic site layout. You may already have something that specifically is going to work for you, and that's great. But we have some documents that'll kind of help you with that idea when you're working on a site layout. Obviously, you want to consider wind direction sun. I've been to a couple of sites and they just put them down and then found out in the summertime they really had a problem. So you want to do a little bit of planning and think about what the site actually is. You want to consider parking. I've seen a couple of clubs that had an issue with that right off the bat, and they didn't really realize that, what does happen when you get 25 cars out here on a Sunday afternoon. You have to figure out where they're going to park and what they're going to do. So you want to keep that in your plans as well. Or 100 cars, which is really good. It's a good problem and a bad problem, but you really have to decide how you're going to handle it. And then your growth potential. If you have a nice site, people are going to come out there. You might have 20 guys this Sunday, but like I said, you might have 100 the next Sunday. Now what are you going to do? So,
or if you have a big event.
Or if you have a big event, absolutely. If you're going to have events, you have to really realize, I'm sure that if you talk to the people that run the Joe Nall, the Confederate Air Force there, when they had their first one, it was 27 pilots. And now they're pushing 1,000, and people who are there for a week or longer. So that's something you have to really work with, and that's something else. And of course, safety. You want to make sure that your site layout makes a lot of sense, and people can fly in a safe manner and keep the models where they're supposed to be, and keep the kids in the cars where they're supposed to be. And then, like I said, we can review these sample field layouts, which will give you a good idea. Now that kind of covers the finding a flying site and how you deal with that. And now we're going to kind of move into the second half, which is kind of, to me, the more important. It's what we've just done is very important, but I think once you get a site, you want to stay there.